taught me how not to run a bank. All right? Now, but I still had my passion there, and I would subsequently, just like most of you here, go and pursue a postgraduate degree, and then start to work in yet another entrepreneurial bank. The good thing about all of these things is that where I am today, my work ethic has not changed from what it was when I first started working. And that is why we're able to found and build the nature of institution that we have today. We believe in what we do. I never worked with Citibank, I didn't work with JP Morgan, I didn't work for an established firm, but I'm working for an international institution that we created ourselves. All of you can do the same thing. Follow your passion, and if you do it well, you will do well.
So what inspired you to transition from banking, well, not that you left banking,
yes,
but to then think of starting an educational institution, university?
Thank you. Well, it's not a transition because I'm still running my institution. I chose to do something that could fundamentally alter Nigeria and Africa, that could change the narrative of how people see Nigeria and Africa, that can take us out of those stereotypes. Now, if you go across the continent, what you find is that there is a big leadership void in the continent. And because today we are the largest employers of services, at least in the context of Nigeria, each time we recruit people, we see a big problem with the quality of people. And if you look at your time, Wale, University of Lagos, University of Ibadan, UNN, IFE, they were great institutions. They produced the best doctors, the best lawyers, everywhere in the world. And when you go to some of the very best hospitals today in the US, you'll see Nigerian doctors. They came out of UI, out of UCH. Now, those standards out of poor funding started degenerating. For those of us who chose to stay at home, we told ourselves the only way we could continue to grow our institutions is actually, to basically start to do something about our educational standards. Now, if you go across the world, the US has its own Ivy League universities. We're sitting in a beautiful campus here in Wharton. So you find in Harvard, you will find in Duke, etc. If you go to the UK, you will see Cambridge like you went to, you will see Oxford. You go to Hong Kong, the same thing. Why can't we create our own in Nigeria? Our own that protects our value system. Our own that is basically geared at creating future leaders of Nigeria. Now, the good thing about coming overseas, and why people did it was because those schools did not exist there. What we want to do is to create a new type of system, create a new type of schools that will both have the highest quality of education, but also have our young adults with the appropriate grit, to turn Nigeria, to turn the continent around. So that was what drove me into it. And I believe that if we get it right, most of what you see, there's something we call Japa in Nigeria. Do you guys know what that is? Why can't we turn that around? If we have young people 10 years after becoming governors, becoming heads of states, creating new businesses, what you find is that you find less and less people coming offshore, and most people staying back at home to create that change required.
Okay, so the critique by some people, and
please,
I am one of them,
tell me,
is why people like yourself who have a great understanding of the crisis and have the resources and vision, not also investing. Nobody is saying you shouldn't create your own, but also invest in those existing institutions that actually train the world class, doctors, lawyers, and all that we have around the world now. Because of the challenge of funding at the level of the state, do you think that the solution is to have the private universities, or also to have that along with creating the conditions for funding the public universities, not only by the state, but also by philanthropy?
So the public universities are okay and need to be worked on. But there's a historical baggage that they carry. So you have lecturers, you have new value systems that have been created. The world has moved away from the old traditional learning methods. There's a huge technology influence which those guys don't have the infrastructure to compete with. Several things. Even the curriculum needs to be changed. So I think rather than get ourselves into all of that, why don't we start it from afresh? Now, there's only so much I can do with respect to, for instance, strikes that ASU would have. Why do I want to get involved in all of that? Why don't I build something from scratch that can achieve the same thing and even better than the old traditional institutions. Let me tell you part of what has happened. Now, and I'll just share it with the story. So I started How Foundation in 2016, and the idea was to help as far as youth empowerment is concerned, as far as education is concerned, and as far as healthcare is concerned. Now, we did all of these things, but I didn't think we had the impact until at some point Yvonne came to join me, all right, in the foundation. And we told ourselves, look, there is nothing that can bridge the West with Africa apart from education. And that if we get it right, perhaps 2 out of those 3 reasons we set up our foundation, which is education and youth empowerment, can be achieved. Now, if we stretch it a bit more, all right, we can get medicine, all right, and that means we can also start to solve some of the medical care problems, and all of that thing we call medical tourism can be brought to an end, all right? So we told ourselves, why don't we do all of that rather than just waiting for the traditional structures to happen? Now, I think that what Wigwe University seeks to achieve is very unique and different from what the existing universities can do, all right? So we're trying to create and nurture a new group of young, fearless leaders, thoughtful leaders, responsible leaders that can alter the direction of Nigeria and Africa. Very, very different. So we cannot put our money into the old traditional institutions, it won't work, all right? This is the best way to do it.
Okay. Well, you could say that part of what your generation did with banking is also to totally revolutionize banking in Nigeria by the creation of the new banks, which totally changed. So how do you think that experience would influence your investment in education and higher education?
Very positively. I mean, you know, at the time we got into banking, the older banks that were 100 years old were the banks who were running the system. And then, of course, you had the likes of Citibank, Standard Chartered, etc., etc. And I recall that people thought, so what are these upstarts going to do that is different? We shared, and this is, by the way, it's on YouTube, we shared with the markets that wanted to create a world-class institution. We said we wanted to be a global institution, etc., etc. And the market laughed and said, how is that going to be possible? It took 100 years for Standard Chartered to be where it was. But where are we today? We're the largest bank in the continent in terms of customer base. We're present in about 21 different countries. Now, why am I giving that analogy? The same thing can be brought to education. We don't need the 100 and something years it took to build Wharton or to build Herbert. Technology is going to make sure that all of those things happen very quickly. Now, the second thing that we've learned is that for every disappointment that we receive or rejection, all right, it makes us so much stronger. So when you say you want to set up Wigwe University, you will still have people say, oh, I want to go to other schools. But guess what? Just in 5, 6, 7 years, that will be the premium university because it offers what no other person, no other institution can offer. That fearlessness in the people we want to create is something that will be unrivaled completely, completely.
Now, you are not creating this university in a vacuum. So what are the existing challenges in the country that you're having to face, and how are you facing these, especially as a social entrepreneur who already understand the nature of the system, but of course also you have to deal with the fundamental challenges of the system. So how do you do this?
There's a broad range of things, and I mean, for all of you here, irrespective of where you come from, it's the same problem because you are largely African or you're coming from developing countries, etc. First of all, you have to deal with regulatory issues. You know, getting into education, as far as I'm concerned, is a privilege. And the regulators need to regulate you properly because you're playing with people's minds, you're nurturing people's thought processes, very, very important. All right, so you need to overcome regulatory challenges because the regulators also do have a mindset in terms of the traditional methods of thinking. Now, so you have a dilemma. One, you need to break from the shackles, but secondly, you need to stay regulated. That's the first point. The second is, in setting up a university, you can go to one extreme, and I saw some Indian institutions that were building colleges and saying they wanted to train about 10,000, for instance, developers, and they wanted to do it over the next 2 or 3 years. Now that's possible, all right, but what we want to do is a bit different. So we need to also, we need to build leaders, and so we need people staying in the campus, etc., which may be a bit more traditional to what they're doing, all right? So getting land in Africa, resolving community issues is a big deal. But we had consultants and we had community engagement with all of those, with the local environment, making sure that all the principles around ESG were adopted, and just making sure that the community truly owns the university. But it's a massive challenge. It may sound very easy from the way I say it, but it's not a joke. I mean, if you were to buy 600 hectares of land from people, you would see different thought processes, and you need to relocate them, you need to basically get them new jobs, etc., etc. It's different. Now, the third issue is acceptance and getting, there is always something about, oh, this is a new university, all right, so why would I rather go to this university than go to any other university, the more established universities, etc., all right, but for me that is less of a challenge, because for those who have an open mind and are clear in their thought process as to where the world is going, we will convince them to go to the right place. So those are some of the challenges. Now, obviously, there is another one which has to do with, which is funding, and making sure you don't run into the same problem that the older institutions run into, at least in the context of Africa. But I think we've built a strong convening platform to share with several people, professionals, business people, to understand that the future is education. And so you'll find several people building up and supporting the whole initiative. So those are some of the things that have happened. Now, creating and working with academia is different from other businesses. I can promise you. I shared with my partner, most of you, and I've seen a couple of my friends from Nigeria out here, and I told him, look, I want to build a university. Now, he used to be the chancellor of another university. He said, look, Herbert, this is a big challenge. Professors are not easy to deal with. They have their own thought processes. It's different from you and I, and they will engage you to the last. I thought it was a joke, but it's not easy. It's not easy, that's the reality, it's not easy. So I've had to look at things differently, engage them differently, learn how to manage people's thought processes, because I'm coming with an entrepreneurial mindset. The old traditional methods of education are not easy, all right? So to make sure that dilemma and to get all of us to be on the same path, all right, is not the easiest of things. And finally, the way people have run schools, relying on grants and research and endowments and all of that, those things don't exist like that in Nigeria, as you know, all right? If you want to create a university that is going to be economically sustainable, it requires a different mindset altogether. If those grants do come, let them come. All right? And I'm saying not just Nigeria, by the way, Africa, because I'm seeing lots of people from Ethiopia and all of that. It's the same problem we all face. All right? Now, so to make it economically sustainable is a massive challenge. Getting it at the right price points, all right, while providing all the things that we require for these young adults to come in here, is a challenge. Now, for those with the old mindset who existed by grants and research and all of that, perhaps a lot easier. Now, we need to know what we're going to provide. We need to go through all we learned in business school, all right? What is my competitive advantage? All of that 7S framework in terms of how do I situate, what is the nature of branding for this university? What is my unique selling point, how do I make teaching different today from what was happening before? All right. How do I still make this profitable so that the lecturers are well paid? It's a problem in Nigeria. All right. If you don't pay and get the right lecturers, then you don't get the right output. Mm-hmm. All right. So all of those things are a lot more complex than you will find anywhere else in the world, at least in the Western world.
Okay. What role do you think technology will play in the future of education in Africa, particularly given the experience of your university?
It's transformational. So I started a law degree during COVID. And I actually finished and graduated as a lawyer. If anybody had told me that I'd have been able to study virtually, I'd have said it was impossible. But technology made it possible. People ask, how did you create the time? Don't worry, it was challenging, eh? And I never knew I was going to finish. Let me share with you guys something. I wrote exams writing. Yes. I had to take exams typing like this. It was a test of what you had read. It was a test of your health because you had to be strong enough for 4 hours to be typing. It was a strength. Everything was being brought to question in those 4 hours. You have no idea. I've had people say open book exams are easy. The most difficult exams are open book exams. Now, but what am I trying to say? I've also come out here and I've seen great things that technology can do in terms of hologram, tutoring, etc., etc. I don't want a school that is purely virtual. No. The social arrangements are important in terms of building people and their people skills. All right? But I think that we can optimize through a proper hybrid learning structure. The quality of education will change. Think about what AI is doing. People think AI is going to make people more redundant. No, it frees up your brain for other things. If you get it put up. So technology is going to actually transform. Well, look, in the last 15 or 20 years, mankind has known more about itself than from eternity to date through the use of technology. It only makes people better and stronger. Now, even for you as a lecturer, just think about how much time it requires to do research today compared to 10 years ago. It's different. The ability to put together tons of information and process it, and even the delivery to students is different. So I think it's going to change how things are done. And for us, it's a very, very massive advantage, all right? Because in our part of the world, where technology is not being used to its full extent, Wigwe University is basically leveraging on cutting-edge technology. We're investing heavily in technology, we're investing heavily in power, all right? So it's blink-free exactly as you have it here, only that we're in better weather conditions than here. So those are the things that we're going to do differently. And sometimes, when you have people go to school back at home, maybe what you'll see is that what they lack is exposure, even though I don't know what that definition means, right? Because it's a unique exposure we have at home, all right? So it depends on who's speaking. But we're going to find constructs where they come and spend 1 year overseas. Just imagine that person with a refreshed curriculum, has the exposure, and then has the local grit to navigate the nuances of our environment. You will have presidents come out of that school in 10 to 15 years.
Okay. Now, one of the challenges you might face is to, have an institution that achieves all of these things and then creates a pipeline for the workforce to feed other markets outside Nigeria. What do you think could be the solution to that challenge, which you mentioned earlier, the whole Japa syndrome?
Yeah. So it's let's break down the concept. The concept of a fearless generation is that generation that does not look for jobs, is that generation that creates jobs, first of all. And that's what we stand for. A good 90% of our students will not look for jobs, they will create jobs, and I'll tell you what that means. Now, we also know that there's the concept of the intrapreneur, which is as important sometimes as the entrepreneur, if you get the point I'm trying to make. So they will do well as well, as far as training is concerned. But just look at the platform on which Wigwe University is created. We built and we're building strong partnerships with institutions that will allow these students to basically do their internships and retain these students when they're in school and when they've left school. The concept of training to create leaders means that they will be taught, they will practice, and they will have mentors in real life who are running large institutions. It also means that depending on what you study, all right, you would have finished most of the certifications while you're on campus. We go even further. Bonuses paid to lecturers, apart from their own traditional 360-degree feedback, will depend on how the students are reviewed by the places where they go and serve as interns. I don't know if I'm communicating. So there's a pipeline required to take these students. This is apart from the fact that the nature of curriculum, all right, is forward-looking, all right, has been reviewed by potential employers, if you get the point I'm trying to make. So most of these people will be taken straight out of school for those who choose to work for people. We're also creating a construct where you have people who can provide angel funding, all right, for those who come up with interesting ideas at the time at which they are leaving college. Those are things we're doing differently. It's completely unique and unique anywhere in the world. You will struggle to find an institution that will do what we're trying to do.
So what advice would you have for people who are hoping to make a meaningful impact in social entrepreneurship and education based on your experience?
I think it's the same thing. First of all, education and social entrepreneurship, in my own context, will be divided as the same thing, because what is social entrepreneurship is just applying our normal commercial instincts and all of that, and applying it to a social endeavor. All right, and I think education will fall into it. It's the same principle, but I think people have to understand that as you go up the developmental cadre, you don't expect the nature of returns you will get, all right, in certain other things, at least not in straight financial terms. You will be economically sustainable, so please don't get it wrong, all right? But the real way to check impact is the overall implications and what it means to people's minds and what it means to the overall economy and all of the things you're doing. Now, for us, the rules and the indices we look at ourselves against is one, our commitment to Nigeria and the continent, because Wigwe University is not just there for Nigeria. We're also looking at getting young people across the entire continent, from Rwanda, Ethiopia, Southern Africa, Cameroon, etc., etc., etc. That social contract with our young people, all right, and I was sharing with Tyler just before I came here. You'll be shocked, guys, that 1 out of every 4 people in this world by 2050 will be African. Because today, our median age, all right, is about 19 years. In the US, it's 38 years. In India, it is 28 years, all right? Now, what that means is that those who are going to have these children are already born. Some of them are here. Yes, they're here, they're right here. So it's not hypothetical anymore, because we're what, 27 years from 2050. They're here, and it's statistically proven, given the growth rates of population and all of that. Now, we have to do things that will engage this young population. And for those who are thinking about it, all right, even if you were to do it for profits, there is the critical mass to do it, all right, because we have a growing population that need to be supported, and of course will come into the system doing things that are economically viable. So even if you're in banking, like I am, it's even a good selfish interest. These are people who are going to be wealthier if we give them the right education. So I think there's a big market for it, but I think that by far the most important thing in my mind is we need to change the narrative through which Africa and Africans are looked at. Very, very important. I don't care what passport you carry. If you're African, you are passported. All right, tomorrow you're going to complain, I have a good job in Facebook, in Google, that's fine. But guess what? One day they'll tell you that you've reached the end of your career out there. Then what do? It's better to go home and develop where you come from.
Now, you mentioned earlier about working for a bank that failed.
Yes.
Someone had said that the measure of a person's character is how they're able to react to failure. What personal failure in your life have you had to cope with?
So, I've failed too many times. Very, very many. Not in banking. So, before I got into PricewaterhouseCoopers, one of my dreams was to work in Arthur Andersen, if you remember them.
Yeah.
So they rejected me. But today I wonder how it would have been like working in Arthur Andersen. I would have ended up doing something I didn't like. So, it's a personal story, I'll keep going. I applied to Harvard and to Wharton. They both rejected me.
Is it in around?
I couldn't sleep for weeks. I was wondering, I tried to hide that letter, but it didn't matter, it was a personal letter. But guess what? What if I had come here? Would I have worked in that bank that failed? No. So my life would have taken a different trajectory. I don't know, for good or for bad. All right? But I look at those who chose to do those things after, and I wonder, wow, thank God for that failure. It redefined my life, if you get the point I'm trying to make. The one thing that I never bothered about, I never let, I didn't develop a complex, I didn't feel different. I was upset with myself because of the standards. Now, okay, maybe at the time I was applying too early, I just graduated, so those were huge considerations. But it didn't occur to me at that particular point in time. We didn't have educational counselors. Both my parents, by the way, were public servants. You don't have an educational counselor. How are you going to pay for that? That's a big joke. You have to get everything through your own hard work. Now you have educational counselors. People can tell you this is what you do. You need to concentrate on the essays. Let me see what I wrote the essay overnight, thinking that was enough to get in. Apparently not. You need to practice all of these things. But so those were things that we considered failures, if you were to define failures. But you should not allow yourself to drop down because you got a disappointment. Those disappointments only take you to the very next level. Only. That is my own personal experience. Now, I got into banking. At this time, I had gotten used to failing. And then I worked in a bank that failed. And I was wondering whether that failure was pulling me all over the place. And but the reason it failed was not my fault. And I shared with my chairman at that particular point in time. I hope I'm not taking too much time, by the way. Am I?
Yeah, we're fine. Yeah.
Okay. And he wanted us to do something, and I felt was too risky. And he insisted that we did it. And I eventually left that job, and that thing was done, or the deal, or at the time. And that was specifically why that bank failed. Now, I felt bad because I believed as part of that team I should have rescued that situation. I was 23, 24 years old at that point in time. I felt bad because I felt I should have rescued the situation. But with benefit of hindsight, I think I did all I could do given where I was in the institution at that particular point in time. But I learned as I moved to the next institution I worked in to share more strongly if I felt about something. And that platform very early in life gave me the opportunity to be whatever I wanted to be. And so it became a massive success. So I learned how to encourage different thought processes. So I would work with young people, I would encourage people to be what they want to be, share their views, etc., without any problem. I've seen that has become a major success ingredient, all right, as I moved on to the next stage in my life, which was the creation and building of Access Bank and the entire Access Holdings. And it's a very strong attributes that we're using in building Wigwe University. It's all inclusive. We have young people. We have a young registrar. In Nigeria, registrars are normally much older. No, we've come down in age. We're also doing the same thing to the teaching faculty, etc. It's easier for young people to relate to. You're going to have a blend, all right, to ensure stability. But it's easier to relate to people not too far away from them, if you like. Yes.
Okay. In spite of not making it to Wharton and HBS, you've done very well in life and very early in life too. Finally, how does it feel to wake up and not have to think of money?
You will always think of money. Anybody who tells you doesn't think about it is lying. But you will think about it differently. You will not think about it for existence. So you could be challenged, I need so much more money to expand on Wigwe University. I need to build this a lot more. I need to impact several more people. What do I do about it? You will never have enough money. How do I expand my convening platform, all right, to attract a lot more funding to support improvements? It could be healthcare, it could be anything. You get the point I'm trying to make. And you can find young people coming out of school, and you know how they do it, carry their computers when they leave Wharton or HBS, they start doing a presentation to you, I need to raise seat for the one, you know what you guys do. All of those things. So you're busy interacting with them. Sometimes you give money, and in the creative sector, some will not succeed, 9 out of 10 will succeed, one will make a lot of progress and make up for all that has been lost. So it's just part of it. I don't think that wanting money for its own sake will ever be the issue. I think that what it can do for you in impact is the most important thing. And for all the things that I've done in my life, and I would subsequently go to HBS and spend on our AMP program. At the time it used to be 6 months. I enjoyed it and developed good friendships that helped me in my business subsequently. Nothing compares to what we're doing here. Working with young people and creating the next generation of leaders. No greater satisfaction, it's the greatest high ever.
Thank you very much. Please join me in thanking. Can I have the organizers, I've been told that my time. I have extra 5 minutes. Oh,
yeah,
great.
extra 5 minutes
Okay.
for Q&A.
Can we take, a couple of questions? Okay.
Thank you. I really respect what you've done at Access Bank and what you're doing with Wigwe. So quickly, in the dinner speech at Nigerian Higher Education Fund in New York, you also talked about
Yes.
grit. So
Yes.
I was there with you.
Yes.
And now you're also talking about fearlessness. I think most of us in Africa and even Nigeria, we know we all became gritty by the hard conditions we grew up in. So I'm just wondering, I'm just curious as to what's special are you going to be, anything special are you going to be doing in the university to make people gritty? Like we generally just become gritty because we grew up in hard conditions. In other words, if I grew up in America, under posh conditions and just came to university, how would I become gritty?
So let me tell you what it is. Being gritty is not just about the physical endurance. That's one. The mental alertness to stand very, very rigorous conditions can be challenging. What you require to set up your business in Nigeria, just as you know, and the changes that you see require just more than physical strength, if you get the point I'm trying to make. Now, what we're going to teach you is just the sheer difficulty and how you navigate those crazy circumstances. Now, you probably don't have a lot of policy changes, for instance, in the US and most of the Western world. But where we come from, across the continent, you meet those changes every day. So you started with a very strong, successful proposition. Guess what? Things change right in the middle. What do? If you get a point of view, before you know it, you're out of business. It requires a different skill, it requires a different mindset, it requires a different thought process, etc. You need to have, the easiest thing is just to jump ship and say, you know what? I want to Japan, I'm out of the country. Very easy, all right? But for those who stay, and if you can train them long enough, all right, history will always, always, always favor the brave, Let me tell you, sometimes you'll be disheartened, all right, just by the difficulty, even in distribution of what you're doing. How do you survive? If you have the right methods, you know what, this problem has existed before, let me show you how to get around it. Those are the little nuances. So it's not just physical grit, it's also the mental grit required. It's different from being out here. It's different from being out here. And I'm sure you know, for those who did their undergrad or who spent a lot of time in Nigeria.
Any other?
Or Africa, by the way. So it's, whether it's Nigeria or it's South Africa or it's Ethiopia, the same thing. No difference.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you so much, Dr. Wigwe, for taking the time today. I just had a quick question around the perennity and the continuity of your institution. You mentioned that the former glories of University of Wharton or University of Lagos. How are you ensuring that your own institutions, 50 to 100 years from today, still holds ground and still exists?
Awesome question. So we're creating something slightly different. We have a slightly different construct from most other universities. We do have an enterprise function that has an independent compliance construct. We are creating a succession plan around governance at that level and at the foundation, which is the owner, all right, to make sure that apart from the university having its own standards, all right, you do have a parallel structure that is watching out for those standards and carrying out independent tests through time and reporting to the foundation. So that way, whether I am dead in 100 years, it doesn't matter, all right? There is an independent compliance function across that is making sure that it works well. Now, I'm putting this simplistically. It's a bit more intricate, obviously, as you would understand, all right? Because how do you make sure that how foundation is perpetually represented on your board, if you get a point of the university, all of those kind of things. How do you make sure it's the right person? So that different things being put in place, like every large organization, all right, to make sure that through time, 100, 200 years, like where we're seated, that this thing is not just about a family, it's about making sure that you have a structure that outlives everybody. And that's what's most important. Good question.
Thank you very much, Dr. Wigwe. I think we'll end it here. Is there someone who is closing? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you for your presentation.
All right.
I was given the mic, so I thought probably I could.
You have the mic.
All right, it seems as if every panelist is talking about regulatory issues in Africa, how difficult it is to navigate that. So my question is, how do you probably navigate those regulatory issues? How do you tackle them? How best can you prepare for those? Since you mentioned that sometimes things change midway through negotiations or deal making. So how best can you navigate those regulatory issues? Yeah.
So I think I'm in the most regulated business, first of all, before going into education, which is banking. I operate in 3 continents. And I think that, quite frankly, the regulatory framework in Africa is unbelievable. I'm talking about from the financial services, whether it's in South Africa or it's in Nigeria, etc. Now, in banking, the way I chose to look at it is that a license is a privilege. It's a privilege. And therefore, your regulator is like a god. First of all, you have to just, for those of, if you're entrepreneurial, just put that up. Anytime you have a regulator, you don't even joke with a regulator, if you get the point I'm trying to make. So you have to learn how to manage your regulator. You have to, and that's through dialogue, all right? And just creating centers of excellence around you, just to be ahead of that regulator. Not too far ahead, because if you're too far ahead and you're doing things and creating products and doing things that your regulator doesn't understand, you will pay the price. So you have to actually carry that regulator alongside you as you are developing whatever you want to develop, if you get the point I'm trying to make. Now, I think if you do that and you earn your regulator's respect, you would have tried. But a regulated business is by far, any business that is regulated is a difficult thing. And if you ask me, apart from everything, what makes me not sleep at night, apart from issues around technology, I'll just tell you, just regulation. Because anything can happen, and you just have to make sure you keep managing that regulator professionally, all right, through your life cycle. Let me give you something that can kill any bank any day, faster than cybercrime or anything. All right, compliance. You can be anything today. Tomorrow morning, a compliance problem can just wake up. You are dead from the regulator. All right. How do you get all your people to understand it? It's even more important than managing the regulator. All right. So just making sure that there's full 1,000% regulatory compliance. And if there's going to be a change, managing and carrying the regulator along that change, all right, is what is very, very important. And the same thing is you'll see in education. Now, education is different, but you're playing with people's minds and you're building people, all right? If done in the wrong way, it can be injurious to the public and to everything you do. So it's same thing, you need to work with the regulator, all right? The other one had to do with money, this has to do with human beings, thought processes, all right? And if there's a change, or you want to do something somewhat different, you need to engage them until they see reason with you. Whether you're doing the right thing or not, if you don't get your regulators on your side, all right, it's a problem. Now, some people will tell you, you can bend the rules so that the human eye does not see. Be careful. Be very careful. It's a problem sometimes you hear between fintechs. Sorry, I may be taking just a bit more time. I'm enjoying myself here. Be careful about that thing, because one day the regulator will wake up and find out something, boom, it brings that hammer on you. So it's a consistent issue that you need to put right at the center of your radar every day of your life, particularly if you are leading that institution. Thank you.
Thank you both for being here, for providing such insightful conversation, and clearly the audience has been captivated and don't want to wrap up this conversation, but hopefully you'll be around to further the discussion.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr.
It's been a great pleasure seeing all of you, and I do hope we all do what we need to do to alter our continent and our countries. I think you are one of the best schools ever in the world. This is a rare opportunity. Do it and come back home. Let's make a change together.